So, if you didn't know or accidentally downloaded the wrong thing, this is the Jon and Ted's Excellent Gamecast, a podcast about video games and stuff like cheeseburgers. I think cheeseburgers are good. So on this show, we interview developers and other interesting characters in the industry, giving you a truly unique perspective on gaming from the minds of an ex-NFL coach, that's me, and a blind computer programmer. I'm here.
Which is me.
Yeah, that's Jon. So I'm your host, Ted Edwards, and I'm here always with Jonathan Nadeau. What's up, my man?
Oh, not too much. Everything over here is normal as it usually is. It's always hectic and busy when you have 5 kids. That's how it normally is. So.
Oh, man. So this is episode 0, and we're going to be diving deep into the kind of the reason why we're doing this podcast, what it's about, what we're going to bring you. And 5 kids is not what we're going to bring you, but it's it's definitely something that is, you know, what we have to deal with or what he has to deal with on a daily basis. So tell us about your family, Jon. Tell everybody who you are and kind of a little bit about your background so they can kind of figure it out.
Yeah, sure. Like Ted said, I'm blind. I would use the word programmer loosely, but yeah, I am somewhat of a developer. I have 5 kids. I've been married for 14 years. I've been together with my wife for 18 years. I wasn't born blind. I was actually in a car accident at the age of 14, which is what caused me to lose my sight. We might get more into that at some other point. I used to love sport. Well, I still love sports and football and all that, but I really loved it before I got in the car accident when I could participate in them, which I still kind of do in a weird sense, and we'll get into that also at some other point. Let's see, what else do I love? I also play guitar, I love music, and I just keep myself busy. I always keep myself busy.
That's a great bio. Again, we're going to talk about that a little bit more. So again, this is a podcast about video games, and so I think, listeners are already like, wait a minute, how do you intake video games being blind? And so we're going to get into that, a little bit more. So about myself, as you know, my name is Ted Edwards, and I have a background in sports. I played football in college, and I was a strength and conditioning coach and sports nutritionist for elite athletes, Olympic athletes, pro athletes. Worked in the NFL, worked with high-level college programs such as Cal, Berkeley, and University of Florida. And I love video games. So it's kind of a funny interplay between being a tough jock and being a video game nerd behind the scenes. So growing up and through life, I've always had that, finding myself kind of moment in where I'm always trying to kind of either hide one side or the other, depending on which group of friends I'm with. Like I said, I love all sports. I mean, football is awesome. Jon and I love talking about football. So all of you video game nerds out there who are like us and you don't like football, I'm sorry. We're probably going to drop a football reference a time or two. I'm currently in Los Angeles, California. I think that's a nice sunny place to be. Los Angeles is interesting. There's a lot of traffic here. I'm a San Diego guy naturally, so still Southern California, but San Diego is just so much better. Sorry, LA. San Diego just rocks. But that's that. Like I said, I've been playing video games ever since I can imagine and remember. I think I was 4, or I think it was like 1989. I think I got my first video game system. I never looked back. It's been a huge part of life. So that's why, one of the reasons why we started this podcast is to kind of bring that out. Currently, I am CEO of RaptorCow, my company, which does a lot of work with the video game industry, and where this podcast is hosted on the RaptorCow Podcast Network. And Jon and I do some work together, and I think it's pretty cool. So we've known each other for a little while now, and I think, so do you want to just get into it and start just riffing and talking and giving everyone the kind of info? Because this is episode 0, so it's going to be a little different format than our typical episode, just kind of introducing you all to who we are, what it is we're going to be doing, and why you should listen to us just blabber for an hour or whatever.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned your getting your first video game console in like 89 or whatever. I can remember I might have been 5 or 6, so this was in 1982 or 83, and my for Christmas, I remember getting the Atari 2600.
Ooh.
And my parents were kind of fun. I was when I look back at it, I was like, man, what a spoiled, wasn't a spoiled brat, but I was so spoiled. It was like, it was crazy. I didn't realize it at the time, but then I looked back at it and I was like, oh my gosh. But so it was, I remember this specifically at Christmas, like opening presents, and then all of a sudden I open up an Atari game. And I was like, wow, I can't play this. And, my mom's like, oh, I guess Santa Claus made a mistake. You'll have to bring it back. And I was like, oh, man. And then all of a sudden I open up more and more games. I'm like, man, I wish I had an Atari to play these. And then my dad pulls out the system behind the chair, and I unwrap it. And I was like, oh, yeah. And I just remember just being so ecstatic. I got Keystone Capers, Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, a couple of other games, but I just remember being so excited when I got that Atari.
Oh, for sure. I mean, and the parents played the fun joke on you, of course.
Totally.
That's fantastic. Yeah. I mean, I remember too the same thing, the same type of excitement on the first video game system. It was just like, oh my goodness, what is this, and what am I going to do for the rest of my life besides this? So yeah, again, I was 4 years old, I think, and I remember just opening it and knowing what it was, but it didn't really like ring true that it was mine. And so I was just looking at it like, whoa. And so my little sister and I, we plugged it in and threw in Mario, and that was it. And I played that probably, I don't think I slept for a week. My mom would send me to bed, and we'd go to bed, and I'd wake up in the middle of the night around 1 a.m. and just kind of get on that. And then
funny.
She'd come up into the room, and I'd hear her, I'd turn it off and jump in bed, and then I'd just go back by the day. But yeah, I think those memories were like the best memories, when you first kind of feel that, oh wow, video games are going to be a part of life for a while. And yeah, like even when we're older and busy, like they still are a part. And I think for a lot of people, it's kind of that first moment that kind of sets you on the path to destruction, so to speak, or amazing creation, which we're going to explore more when we talk about game devs, when they can actually make it a career. But for sure. So after your Atari, what did you play? What did you get?
So here it comes back to the whole spoiled part. So now we're looking around 1984 or maybe 86, and so I asked my parents, I really want this thing called the Nintendo. Yeah. This thing is awesome. My friend next door, Kevin, he's got one. I totally want one of these. And like, okay, yeah, well, we'll talk about it. Well, my uncle was he worked in Connecticut, the New London submarines, and he actually did computer programming for them. And he told my parents, no, don't get your kid a Nintendo. You want to get him a computer, so get him this Commodore 64.
Oh, see, you went the different route.
Yeah, and so I can't remember if it was for my birthday or Christmas. It was one of the two. And so I'm like, oh yeah, I could feel it. There's a big box here. That's totally a Nintendo. And I open it up, and it's this Commodore 64. Mind you, this thing is like 5 or 6 times more than a Nintendo.
Oh, totally.
Cost wise, And I open it up, and I don't think I actively like said this out loud, but in my mind, I'm like, are you kidding me? I asked for a Nintendo and you get me this stupid thing? And it's like
what a brat.
Seriously, it's like it's like on your 16th birthday, you ask your parents, "Hey, can you get me I just want a beater car, just give me like a Ford Escort or a station. I don't care what it is. I just want a car, right?" And then they go out and get you a Porsche, and you're like, "What the heck? I didn't ask for a Porsche." Like that's basically what it was like. So I ended up getting a Commodore before I got the Nintendo. And, looking back at it, it was, the better move, at least for me and where I ended up in life.
Oh, totally. I mean, that's kind of, it's interesting how you could never assume the events that would take place, but it kind of sets you on a good path, after it sets you up for later in life,
Yeah, totally. So here I am, like I'm in 4th grade. I got my own computer in my own room. I'm like, I'm using the, what's quote unquote the internet at the time, because I had one of those old school modems where you take the phone and put it on the modem. So I had one of those, and I was connecting to message boards and doing stuff, and so I got over not getting the Nintendo once I figured out the power behind the computer. But eventually I did get a Nintendo a couple of years later. But so the computer was my second sort of I don't know if you necessarily call it a gaming system, but it had some pretty sweet games on it also.
Oh, totally.
So,
and I think we're kind of dating ourselves with
yeah.
everybody here. They're like, hey, what is going on? But no, yeah, in the 80s, and probably a lot of the video game listeners are, born in the late 90s, and so their first systems were maybe like the PS3 or PS2.
I know, that's crazy.
Yeah, but like I said, we are definitely video game connoisseurs and people. So we've been there since the beginning, but at the same time, we still love the new stuff. And if you haven't played all the old stuff, go back and mess with it. Now, it doesn't really hold up sometimes, and you got to take that with a grain of salt. But at the time, it was amazing and miraculous, and it's pretty cool. So I mean, some of the stuff in like the 3D platformer Polygon era and on the PlayStation or even like the Sega 3D, all that stuff that doesn't really hold up too well, but I suggest go back, and I'm not going to say illegally do it like emulators, but because that is illegal. You should not do that, right? But
as long as you have a hard copy of the game, you're good.
Exactly. So, see, just get a hard copy of the game.
Just pull out all your hard copies out of storage and you'll be all set.
For sure. Yeah, but I definitely say go back and do it because I mean, starting on the Commodore, I mean that's awesome. I started on a Nintendo. I definitely played a lot of Atari. My neighbors had Atari. So we messed around with that. One thing I don't think I played was what was it? I played almost every system, I would say. But what is the one where it's the video TV or what it was back in the day?
The ColecoVision?
The ColecoVision. I have not played one of those guys.
Yeah, my cousin had one of those. I played it a handful of times, but I never actually owned one.
Yeah, see, that's one thing I haven't really put my hands on. I've messed around, I would say, with just about every system as there is. But yeah, I don't think I've really messed with that too much. But I mean, again, that was a little bit before my time, and like I said, I consider myself like an original, an OG in the gaming in the gaming world. But yeah, I haven't messed with that too much. But yeah, so what were some of your favorite games, John, back in the day?
Oh man, Tecmo Bowl.
Oh, dude, don't even get me started. Bo Jackson, what?
my friend and I, we used to like try to set all these records. So
yeah,
we would take we'd choose the Raiders on the kickoff. We'd get tackled on the one.
Yep.
And then we'd do a 99-yard touchdown run with Bo Jackson.
Yeah, yep. And this is before. See, the Raiders were my favorite team growing up, always. So I mean, I've had some miserable times as a fan. And I kind of, unfortunately, I gave up on the Raiders about 2006. I was like, I can't do you guys anymore. I just can't deal with it. So I am football agnostic right now. I like certain teams, but I don't have a favorite team. Just the Raiders hurt my heart. So they've been my favorite team forever. But yeah, so I used to pick the Raiders because they were my favorite team. Not unbeknownst to me that Bo Jackson was straight up OP in the game and absolutely ridiculous, and so I would score 80 points in a Tecmo game with 1:30 quarters because I just got so good at it. It was
exactly you master it because you got to do the shortest kick, so it takes up the least amount of time. You do the shortest kick, tackle them right away. Get them to do 3 and out, and then you can score. You can rack up 100 points easy in Tecmo.
Oh yeah. See, what I used to do too is the old Hail Mary trick. You ever do that?
Oh yeah, you can fade back like 30 yards,
yep,
and
just
then
run back and just throw it.
Exactly.
As long as they don't pick your play, it's a touchdown every time. And as long as the receiver's fast. I just threw it to Tim Brown every time.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I really hated playing, though? I hated when you had to play the freaking Chicago Bears because they were tough on that game.
That's who I always used was the Bears.
See,
got to use Sweetness.
Sweetness, he was nasty.
Exactly.
But, I used to get down on some Tecmo Bowl. Like, I even have a little video. Maybe I'll throw it up on the site of me playing recently on it. I think I hung 77 on the computer, and I hadn't touched it in maybe 15 years. I just threw it in and messed with it.
Do you get the versions of Tecmo Bowl where they update the roster now?
Oh no! Wow, they could do that.
Yeah, there's people that actually update the roster on Tecmo Bowl to the current rosters that are now playing.
For real, that is awesome. See, that would be great. See, then when Tecmo Super Bowl came out, that was cool. That was groundbreaking. You had 2 pages of plays. Oh man,
yeah,
2
exactly.
pages.
Instead of 4 plays, you had like 12.
But the one thing I didn't like is you couldn't run through players. You had to actually hit. I was like, oh man, but I still like Tecmo Super Bowl. But no, Tecmo Bowl, the original. Oh my goodness, I'm telling you. Oh, and
Eric Dickerson on the Colts.
Of course.
Yep.
Like, yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, like the Giants were good, and the
Lawrence
and the
Taylor.
Bears. Yep, and the Bears were good, and those teams were just like, I hated playing those. In the season, I would just mash through the season, and it was awesome. I would get so mad, I was like, I don't know, 5 years old, 6 years old, and I played it all the way to probably I would say maybe 11. When I would always throw that thing in. I think I would get so mad if I scored less than 60 points in the game. I would or if they scored on me, I would freak. Like I think maybe like in a season when you go through season mode, I'd get 1 or 2 touchdowns scored on me the whole season. Like,
Man,
it was impossible. Like it was great.
Yeah, that game sticks out. Well, how about you? What was your favorite Nintendo game?
Oh shoot, a Nintendo game. I had probably 3 or 4. So Mario 3, everybody knows that.
Oh yeah, that's a great game.
I mean, let's just start with that real quick. I mean, this is going to turn into the retro podcast right off the bat, but it's okay because again, I think maybe let's do that. Let's kind of go with it. So this for episode 0, I guess we'll hound on the Nintendo games. But we'll talk about all of our favorite games of all time, and then we'll kind of dive deeper into the Nintendo. How's that sound?
Yeah.
All right. So I think Mario 3, with my little sister and I, we played that till like our controllers broke, and I think we went through, no joke, probably like 8 or 9 Nintendo controllers because we would just mash the buttons in
like
so many times.
The A and B buttons wouldn't come out anymore.
Oh man, and then like they would be just so messed up, or the D-pad would just get worn, or the start button would fall off. It's just So we played Mario 3 like crazy to the point where just get 2 whistles and I beat the game in 20 minutes, and I was like, okay, this is cool. but I think. I mean, that was just the most I remember the most fun with my sister and I just playing. But I think what I really loved, and it's going to be kind of, everyone's going to send me stuff. Oh, that sucks. But I think I loved Battletoads. I loved me some Battletoads. My sister and I used to play that constantly. And then for my personal favorite is Mega Man 2 and Mega Man 3.
Oh, yeah. Mega Man 2 is definitely one of my top 3 for sure.
Mega Man 3 is a quote better game in a lot of many ways. It improved on Mega Man 2, but Mega Man 2 was the first that you play Mega Man 1, this is great, and then Mega Man 2 was just this. It was amazing. It was phenomenal.
I actually played Mega Man 2 before Mega Man. So when I played Mega Man 2, I was like, this is an amazing game. Oh, totally. And when I went back and played 1, I was like, yeah, it's not as good.
No, but it was groundbreaking. And actually, recently, last summer, it's been a while I should play it again, but I beat it last summer. Again, just went through it, and it's a hard game, man. Whew, that game's tough.
Yeah, I remember. I want to say it was a Nintendo Power magazine. They had an article on Mega Man 2, and it showed you like the best people's weapons to use against the other guys to beat them quickly. So that was really cool to have those cheat sheets.
Oh yeah, and then what they don't say too is there's an actual best way to go through all the guys. You there's a best way to go. You can go any way you go, and if you want to start with Flash Man, sure, go ahead. But yeah, there's an ideal way, and there's a couple other podcast personalities. Colin Moriarty from the Game Over Greggy show. He always talks about Mega Man and how it's his favorite and how he beats it. He's beat it hundreds of times. And Mega Man 2 is awesome. I mean, the music is fantastic in it. It's just a great game all around, and it's phenomenal. And then obviously Mega Man 3 was cool, but I was a really big fan of all the Mega Man series. And then some offshoot random games. It's funny. I was in San Diego a couple months back, and there's a new video game bar. It's like the new thing where everyone goes to bars and they have video game cabinets all around it, and Nintendo systems and PS2s all around the bar, so you can go just play video games the whole time. The whole theme is gaming. So we went there, and Super Off-Road. I really liked that game, and my girlfriend, she came in and she was like, what is this? And I was in the corner, and she couldn't find me for like 20 minutes, and I'd already dumped in like $6 into this machine, and I was just cranking, and I was already at the very, very last race. It'd only been 20 minutes, and I'd already just cooked through that thing. And like I had people around watching me because I had the good memories, and they had the steering wheel there actually, so I was flipping the steering wheel around, and everyone was watching, cheering, and it was pretty awesome. But yeah, I remember some Super Off-Road action, and most of these old Nintendo games, when you're younger, you just have time to play, so you get really, really good at them.
Oh yeah.
You get really good. I mean, the newer games, You have time, but again, I was saying we have a lot of stuff going on, so our video game time is limited and or different in your case. But it's so back in the day, it was man, we had time to get down. I can really get down. So,
another game, another two games that just popped in mind that I loved. The first one, which was totally groundbreaking, Zelda.
Oh, of course, I actually beat that for the first time. Hey, everybody, this is true. No BS. I beat this game for the first time 3 months ago.
That's wrong.
I played so much of it. It just, when you're young, you don't know where to get everything. You don't know all the secret doors. I mean, I'm like 7. I'm like, okay, I'm playing through this for hours, and I have my save. I'm messing around. I don't know all the orders of the dungeons. I think I got through maybe 5 or 6 dungeons, but I actually sat down and I was like, I'm going to beat this game, and I beat it. 3 months ago. 3 months ago.
Like, that was amazing to be able to save your game. I was like, I can actually save my game because back in those days, it's like Super Mario 3 or Super Mario Brothers. You got to sit down, and you got to play it,
or you left it on.
Exactly. It's like there is no save. Nope. So being able to save it was cool. And another one, I don't know, you may or may not have played this one, but this was also another like awesome game. I believe it was called Pro Wrestling.
I did not play Pro Wrestling.
Oh man, that was an awesome game. It had like these, this guy, I think it was called the Amazon, and like he would like bite people, and it had this guy who was like the typical sort of Hulk Hogan guy. His name was like King Slender, but oh man, that was an epic wrestling game.
Well, if we're on that route, I mean, I used to get down on some Punch Out. That's for darn sure.
Oh, dude, I still play Punch Out.
I played Punch Out the other day. Actually, I was. You guys will get to know our production intern, one of the Froyo Bros. We have two helpers who help us produce the podcast, and we call them the Froyo Bros because they work at a local frozen yogurt place and I met them, and they became good friends. And one of them is the audio engineer for the podcast, and the other is the production assistant and our intern who will kick around because he sucks. But but I was they're younger, and so they had never really seen or played old Nintendo games, so I fired it up and I showed them everything, and so we played Punch Out for about an hour the other day, and we got down. They were so amazed at just the simplicity, but how hard it got. And I was like, no, you have to punch him when his mouth is open. Hit him.
Yeah, exactly.
They're like, what?
The old King Hippo.
Yeah, like they couldn't get it, and they're like, oh man, this is crazy. I'm like, See, when his little jewel flashes, hit him.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly, dude. Yeah, I played the other day to show my kids. I was like, I can still get up to like the 5th or 6th guy. They're like, no, you can't. And so I was like, when my son has a hacked Wii, and we can play the ROMs, and so we put on Tyson's Punch Out, and I was like beating the guys left and right, and they were like, I can't believe that Dad's knocking all beating all these guys. And like I just remembered all the things just from the music and the sound. Totally. Like I would just remembered all the timing, and that's all it was.
Yep, exactly. So that's awesome for sure. That's Nintendo was. I mean, I got down on Nintendo, and even in the next generation of consoles, the Nintendo was still pretty important. I actually still have my Nintendo all chilling in storage. I need to bust that thing out. So all these games I'm telling you I played on may or may not have been legal, but we're not gonna. We won't say exactly where I played them, but for sure, yeah. So I definitely, I would say favorites of mine. Just if it came down to it, would definitely be Mega Man 2, and Tecmo Bowl for sure. So we definitely have that one in common. And if we're gonna jump around just for favorite games, I want to say, I don't know why I just made the segue, but yeah, we're gonna go favorite games.
Okay, where it works.
Yeah. So I would say, Metal Gear Solid on the PlayStation. That game, I put it in. I saw it on G4 TV back in like 1997.
Oh yeah,
and like original video game TV. Like it was like the first episode of this TV show about video games. They were taking a big risk on it, and I heard there's a new show about video games on. So I saw this game on the show, and I was like, Mom, I have to have that game for Christmas. It must occur. And it must happen in my life. And so, sure enough, I got it for Christmas, and thanks Mom, thanks Dad, and I played it, and my mouth dropped. I was playing a movie. The cinematic feel of it, the music, the mature themes. You know, I'm young, but still I knew what was up, and it was, I think I was maybe 14 or so, 13, and it was definitely something that I was just like, wow. So and then ever since then, Metal Gear has been, you know, one of my favorite series. I even played the original Metal Gear on Nintendo. That game is weird and crazy, but I played that game. Yeah, and I even played Metal Gear 2. Metal Gear 2 is a little bit better. Metal Gear, the first one is rough. I hate those dang dogs. But,
yeah, exactly.
But no, I mean, I got Metal Gear Solid, and I just played the crap out of that. And there's so that was like a big major one. So that's been a favorite series. But as far as other on that platform on the PlayStation, I mean, I have to go with Final Fantasy VII. I mean, just the check mark, everyone knows it, everyone loves it, and like it's really divisive. You know, everyone's like, oh, it's one of the best games of all time. Some people are like, I hate Final Fantasy VII, but I got obsessed with that game to the point where I got grounded. I couldn't play it anymore. My mom took it away. She's like, you play this too much. I was like, yeah. So like, I couldn't play it anymore. And so that was pretty nuts for me, I would say.
Man.
Yeah, definitely. Did you have a Sega? Is it Sega Genesis?
Yeah, I had a Genesis. I didn't get the Super Nintendo. My best friend had the Super Nintendo,
Same.
and so I got the Genesis. And after seeing the Super Nintendo, because I ended up buying the Genesis with my own money.
Nice.
And after seeing the Super Nintendo, I was like, man, I think I made the wrong choice.
The games, the games I thought for Sega were pretty fun though. As far as quality and graphical power and everything, I think the Super was a little bit superior, but the Sega, the games were just plain fun. Like they weren't crazy. They had the little 16-bit like smashed on, JPEG looking things. Just boom, there you go. Play a game.
They really went above and beyond the Call of Duty with Sonic. So that's what sealed the deal, because Sonic looked way better than anything on the NES at the time, on the Super NES at the time.
Yep.
So that's why I went with it, because I was like, man, if Sonic looks like this, imagine what the other game's going to look like. But, that didn't guarantee every other game was going to look that way.
Nope.
So,
There's some definitely good ones on there. Like, I got down some Sonic, man. I played Sonic 1, 2 decently, but Sonic and 3 and Sonic 3 and Sonic and Knuckles, man, oh, shoot, I beat everything. I know every secret on those. And, a lot of people hate on the Sonic games, but I play the crap out of those.
Oh, no, I love them. I can't really say I had really any favorite Genesis games on 4. I liked Golden Axe. That was really cool.
Golden Axe 2, for sure.
Yeah.
I think that was my favorite, because a lot of the Sega games were actually arcade cabinet ports.
Exactly.
And so I remember I had fond memories of playing those in the arcade, and then when I could bring them home on my TV, I was like, holy crap. Because I remember, back in the day, going to the laundromat with parents, and, having like, my mom had an extra quarter. She'd give me a quarter and I'd go play Golden Axe. I would just get down and I'm like, yeah, because there's an arcade next door. Yep. And so I would just throw a quarter in. I would just knock that out. I'd play Golden Axe until, oh man. And also another one kind of in that wheelhouse was Altered Beast.
Oh yeah, that was a good game.
Oh yeah, I played that, and it was right next to it. So I had a Golden Axe cabinet and then an Altered Beast right next to it. So that's what
actually another impressive graphics wise game was the what was it? The James Buster Douglas boxing. That was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
That was pretty amazing graphics.
Yeah, that was good. They were talking about being the next new Punch Out. I remember the ad campaigns for it. They were like kind of pushing it hard. My friend had it. I never got that, but we played that pretty solidly. A group of like 3 or 4 of my friends.
Yeah, back to kind of like arcade games being ported. I remember when I got Gauntlet for my Commodore 64.
Yes.
I was like, this is what I'm talking about. Like, I played the heck out of that game on my Commodore.
Gauntlet, man, that's a throwback right there. See, like that. See, that a lot of people, a lot of kids, I would say, don't know, but that set the groundwork for a lot of games today. Like Gauntlet, it was like, that's the reason many game genres exist. Like that game was
totally
groundbreaking in every sense of the way. And like, I don't mean to be like, analyzing video games and talking about this and that, but that game was just, it's not super complicated, but it's just amazing.
Yeah, it's all about the playability of the game.
Yeah, totally.
Like, yeah,
I'm tracking on that for sure.
What else was it? Oh, for some reason, thinking of Gauntlet, this also triggered me my memory of another cool Nintendo game. That this is probably, if I were to pick a top five, this would fall into that. It would be Wizards and Warriors.
Wizards and Warriors. Yep.
Oh man, that was a pretty awesome game.
Oh yeah, I mean, as far as RPGs go, that was it. That was awesome. Like yeah, Wizards and Warriors rocked. Do you ever play Swords and Serpents?
No, is that sort of like Ghosts and Goblins?
No, Ghosts and Goblins. That game. Whew, that's.
I lost a lot of money in that game in an arcade.
I lost a lot of sanity on that game. Like, crap. That's good lord. It's to the point where, I mean, everyone knows it's like the hardest game of all time voted. That Battletoads, Mega Man 2, all those are the hardest games. But like that is the hardest game of all time, voted hands down. Everyone knows. Like no saves, you get through it. You get 2 hits. You don't get through it, you beat the game, you got to do it again with 1 hit. It's like
exactly.
It's like how? What kind of a BS is this? I just spent my whole life. You guys think Bloodborne and like Dark Souls is hard. All these new games that are in those wheelhouse. That was the original. That thing. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Terrible. So I got that game on Nintendo. I got it, and I maybe played the first level 4 times, got to the second, and then I never played it again for like 2 years. Because I was like, this is terrible. But then I went back and played it and got decently far. Still never beat it. I'll be the first to admit that I don't have those skills. But
yeah, I don't think I ever beat it either. It's an insane game.
It's absolutely insane. It's definitely rough. But no, the Swords and Serpents was kind of it was the next step up from like a DOS text-based game. So
okay.
You had the old text-based game DOS where they had the dungeon layout, right? Well, you had the layout where it's a maze, right?
Yeah.
Well, so you had a screen right on the right side, and it was basically kind of an almost block like visual version of that text-based dungeon layout. So instead of like having just like lines and like numbers for like the dungeon layout, it was just like red blocks, and you were a little arrow. And on the left side of the screen was whatever happened in that block, in that space that you moved into. So
okay,
and on the bottom of the screen you had 4 characters. You had like Ajax and Ramus and like all these 4 character names. One was a wizard, one was a warrior, one was a mage, like a warlock, and one was like a thief. And
okay,
like two girls and then 2 dudes, and like they had little terrible portraits. And then you move to like you push like you have to hold A and up to move your your person in or your party in the dungeon, and then you'd move the arrows to move between the different characters at the bottom to like select what they did. So then you'd move A, you'd hold A and move up and left, and then there'd be a maze, and then you'd have to like go through the maze, and the mazes were huge. I'm talking like huge, like hundreds and hundreds of different squares, because every time you moved up you were in a different square. You were just this little white arrow, and the dungeon was red, and the rest around you was black, so you had no clue where you were going.
Sounds like a little more advanced adventure on the Atari.
It totally it was, and it was cool because like in the screen, like you would come to a like on a wall, and like and on the screen there would be a wall in front of you. The dungeon would be like a color, so it'd be like a gray like wall with like some vines, but it'd be really rudimentary. And then like you have to turn left or right, and you could turn left or right, and the screen on the left would change. So it was very cool. And then you hit a battle, and then like this whatever thing, a spider would show up in the thing, and you'd attack it and make these funny sounds and this crazy battle music. And it was just a really cool RPG. And like your party would die, you level up, but I played that a lot, and it was just because I didn't really understand what an RPG was yet.
Yeah,
I was like, what am I doing? And then once I figured out that if I go here and then I attack this, I get better. And then I was like, that makes sense. So that was the first time when I played a game that the game helped me progress to, not just my skills. Like playing Mario, you got better at playing Mario,
right?
Like you got better at playing the game. But this is the first time where I got better at playing what the game was telling me to do, but in the game I got better. So I thought that was really, really cool. And I think that kind of started me on like understanding and really liking RPGs and being like, well, that's really cool that you get better in the game.
Yeah.
So I mean that game was, it's by far not a great game. It's actually probably pretty terrible, but it definitely kind of set me on the track to be like, this is pretty neat.
Man, yeah, my favorite Zelda game was A Link to the Past on the Super Nintendo. That was my favorite Zelda game. I hated Zelda 2.
Zelda 2 was weird, but yeah, Link to the Past is actually the spiritual successor to number one. That's what it is. Link to the Past. It's kind of like Mario 2. You know, it's kind of like weird. You know, like how Mario 1 is. Mario 3 is technically the sequel to Mario 1, and Mario 2 is just some crazy acid trip. You know?
Exactly. Exactly.
Link to the Past.
Yeah, I loved Link to the Past, and trying to think of another game that I loved on the Super Nintendo. I normally, I like games like this. It's UN Squadron. It's kind of like a 1943 or 1942 kind of game.
Oh yeah, yep.
But instead of vertical, it was horizontal. It was a side scroller. But what was cool is you would earn money and you could buy upgrade your planes. And so the more you upgraded your plane, the more bombs and other stuff you could hold on your plane.
Cool.
So it's a really cool game. So I really like that game too.
Right on. Yeah, that was, again, the early systems, that just kind of set the precedent for everything in the sense of, it's just the marketing campaigns were crazy. Like, you remember the Nintendo Power marketing campaigns? Nintendo Power. Now, the amount of budget that goes into like some of these game commercials and ad campaigns is crazy. So, the Destiny game commercials or the Call of Duty game commercials are just big budget blockbuster films, like 3-minute, 2-minute long films. It's pretty crazy. But as far as ad campaigns, they played into, back in the day, like your innate human desire to get obsessed with something and want something. It was just, I need to have a Nintendo. I need to have a Sega or a Super Nintendo. If I don't have it, I will die. There's no other way around it, dude. I'm like, man, like what is going on? Like, you'd see the commercials, or you'd see like a newspaper magazine or an article in one of those, and you would just be like, if I don't have that, I don't know if I will survive.
Yeah, I hear you. Or I'll get beat up at school if kids find out I don't have one.
Exactly. And that was the other thing. It's like, they knew how to market to peer pressure, because that was the time back in the day when it was, like Dare and like peer pressure and all the kid stuff. And,
exactly.
And there was no social media or anything like that. So our pressure was each other. Like, oh, you're not cool because you're not cool. You don't have that. And so you really want to fit in. But yeah, it was just, the Nintendo Power commercials and all the Sega Genesis, how we're cool. Yeah. It was just like, the typical 90s, like rock and roll riffs and stuff. Hence the reason, the Jon and Ted's excellent Gamecast.
Exactly.
Bodacious.
Exactly. I don't have past the Super Nintendo, because the Super Nintendo and Genesis, I lost my sight in '92. So that's
that's perfect segue. I was actually gonna mention that when we moved on to that. Yeah, tell us like kind of the last the last bastion of games that you actually saw and when you play, because I know you play games after, which we'll get into that later, because that's pretty awesome. Everybody, John can play video games blind, and if you ever complain about playing a game and you can't see, like the screen's too dark, try doing it blind. When
the screen's always dark.
Yeah, it's always dark. We talked about it when we first met, and it blew my mind, and it was awesome. He would explain it, but yeah. So tell everybody, kind of like, what was the last system you saw, last games you played, what you did?
So the Super Nintendo, like I said, was the last system I played. I saw like Castlevania 4, Castlevania 4, Final Fight on the Super Nintendo, even though it's an arcade game. Final Fight. I never really got much into the role playing games, because my mindset at that time was just like, push buttons, smash buttons.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Now I would appreciate them, but now I can't play them. But anyways, so those are kind of, I never saw the Saturn CD. I never saw a Sega CD. Oh, I also own a TurboGrafx 16.
Oh, nice. Oh, wow. There's 4 of those made.
I always joke with my wife, like I always chose like the loser systems to buy. But
that's funny.
I did have a TurboGrafx 16 that had a lot of really cool games, but I believe the TurboGrafx was the first system to implement a CD based game system, because you could buy the TurboGrafx was it was like almost like a modular system because
you can add stuff to it. I know that.
Yeah, on the back of it had this port, so you could buy the CD drive essentially and attach it to your TurboGrafx, and then play the CD games to that. I never had one of those, but I saw like you could get Street Fighter, like the original Street Fighter.
Oh, nice.
And there's a couple of other games that I saw. They looked not that good. Like it was a step in the right direction, but it was it's first gen technology.
Yeah,
so
it's that 32-bit type of deal, not quite 64, but it was kind of that in between, just polished up. Yeah, I totally, I'm tracking with you on that for sure.
So a couple, one of my favorite games, which is weird for the TurboGrafx 16, was this pinball game called Alien Crush.
Oh.
It was awesome. Like I would play it for hours and hours, and I would literally have millions of points in the game. It was an awesome game.
Did you ever play actual pinball cabinets like at arcades?
Yeah. Okay. I loved the last pinball game I played was Pinbot.
Okay.
That was an awesome game.
Okay, I was just saying, like, because that usually translates, because I used to get down on like the old Windows pinball games, like hardcore, like.
Yeah. And then I guess the one last system that I saw actually too was the Neo Geo.
Oh yeah.
So I played a bunch of those games in the arcade. My favorite Neo Geo game was either Ninja Combat, which was really awesome.
Ninja Combat.
Exactly. Yep. Or the it was called Cyber Up. I don't know if you remember seeing that one, but it was like kind of a commando kind of game, but way more futuristic with like the weapons and enemies.
Oh, cool.
It was a pretty awesome game. I spent lots of money on that game too.
Sounds like a precursor to Contra.
Exactly. So those are the last systems I really saw. Like I said, I never saw, any of the Sega CD or Saturn or
PlayStation going on.
Yeah, I never saw the original PlayStation.
That came out in '94. You just missed that.
So, yeah,
95 actually. So
yeah, so I missed that. I saw like Game Gear, the Atari Lynx.
Oh yeah,
I saw those, but I think I also saw the Atari Jaguar. But yeah, basically no CD based systems I saw outside of the TurboGrafx. And so after I got in that car accident, I kind of was just dealing with that. And so I didn't because now I watch TV and, people like laugh at that or whatever. But so at the time when I first lost my sight, I didn't bother watching TV. I obviously didn't play video games. You know what? I take that back. There was a point in the hospital where I did play a video game because I was in the hospital for like a month and a half, and I had heard that they had like a Nintendo systems that they would have on a cart and wheel it around to kids. They could have like an hour with it or whatever. And I requested it, and the nurses like laughed it off because they knew I was blind, and I knew I was blind at that point too. And they laughed it off. And my mom, she was always fighting for me throughout her life, and she was like, hey, if my son wants to play, what do you care if he can see the screen or not? He wants to be able to play the Nintendo.
Yeah.
And so I had my mom bring Tyson's Punch Out in because I still had, the game.
Oh yeah.
So she brought it in, and I was playing it, but by the memory of the sounds, I would remember exactly what the guys are going to do through the music and the sounds they would make. And my mom told me after I'd done playing and they took it away, she was like, you wouldn't believe there were like 5 nurses in your door, like blown away watching you beat those guys and knowing you couldn't see. They couldn't believe it. And so, so I did play just that. I did a lot of things after I lost my sight just to prove I could still do things to myself. Like I still rode I used to do like BMX freestyling. I still did a bunch of that stuff, even though I was, still blind. I used to do like flips and back dives and stuff into my pool. I would still do that. So I did a bunch of stuff when I first lost my sight, just to prove to myself, look, just because you can't see doesn't mean you can't do these things still. And so so I always did a bunch of stuff just to prove to myself, you can do anything. Just because you can't see, don't let it stop you. If you could do it when you could see, you can do it when you can't see. So that's why I did a lot of the things that I did when I was younger.
Exactly. And the cool thing about that is, like we're going to talk about video games on the show. Obviously it's a show about video games, but we're also going to talk about a lot of other stuff like life and how we, no unpun intended, how we see things, how we perceive things. And that is one thing that is pretty awesome, that I think what kind of drew me to you, John, is why we've become pretty good friends now, is the fact that you don't give up and that you do not care. You don't have a chip on your shoulder. It's
Yeah.
not like, oh, I'm blind, or look at me, this and that. It's you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna do what I can, and I'm gonna do whatever it takes. And you overcame. And a lot of people nowadays, they lose that. It's they're entitled and they don't want to work hard for anything. But imagine being put in a situation today, how many people would just fail and not be able to overcome. And I think that's awesome. I mean, you continue to do the things you love. And like I said, like, we're going to talk about a lot of things on here, and we like telling stories, so we're going to talk about a lot of things that are important to us and that we think are important to everyone listening, and we're just going to go with it, because again, you and I, like I say, we can talk forever, and we get into this weird time vortex where it's like, oh, what, it's midnight, oh crap, okay, well, I guess we got to go to bed. So so I mean, I think that's awesome, and I think it's good, because that's kind of the mainstay of why we're doing the show. We're giving people a different perspective on this, what video games are, what it is to consume video games, what it is to just kind of see life, and your perspective is extremely unique in that sense, especially someone trying to consume a visual medium, and being a part of that. And so I think people will be interested in really understanding how you do that, and how we are doing that right now with this podcast. And again, your background is the game development, and you like doing all the dev stuff. And when we have these developers on, I mean, you're going to be right on them and talking about the code and talking about how they did it. And
exactly.
And if they haven't done research on the show, they're going to talk to you, about all the visual components, and you're going to be like, yeah, you know what they're talking about, because you know the code behind it, the base, and that's awesome. that's really awesome, And so I think our perspectives are very unique, and yours from a different point of view. And most video game podcasts come from game journalists, or people in the industry, and where they talk about, hey, I know this developer from 4 years ago, 4 years back, and well, I mean, a lot of listeners, a lot of people, they're like, hey, I love video games. I just want to hear about them and talk about them and see them. So I think hopefully we're going to bring something that's, fresh and cool to people, and they'll like it. and they'll, hope they like us. I mean, because I suck, but you're going, no, let's go. But no, I think we're going to be, because we want to share things with everybody. At least I do. We both listen to a lot of podcasts, so we know that value of like listening to something that's that we look forward to every week, and that we want to bring that to everybody. So I think that being said, the fact that you bring that perspective is awesome.
Yeah, So I didn't play video games for at least, for a handful of years. Like I said, I played Tyson's Punch Out, but once I kind of did that, I didn't really. I might have played a couple of other games here and there, like, because again, I obviously play by the sound, and I had seen the Nintendo, so I knew what the games looked like. So I still pretty much play like sports games. So like with bases loaded, it would make a sound when the pitcher threw the ball.
Yep.
So
we talked about that. Yeah.
So I would count a few seconds, swing, and hit the ball. And so basketball was a little harder, like double dribble. Oh man, that was awesome. But that's a little harder because there's no way for me to tell when I'm going to be out of bounds.
So you'd have to kind of like estimate when you're in there.
Yeah, I would just kind of pass the ball around. Like I wouldn't even really move the guys. I would just kind of keep passing the ball around, and then I would just time the jump shot, like. Sure. Hold it down for 2 seconds, let go, and sink the shot. Yeah,
but dude, you played football games too, though. Like that's what got me. That's because you played one of my favorite football games of all time, and like on, like everyone likes Madden, but before there was Madden, there was NFL Game Day '98, and that's what we used to get down on.
Yeah, and that's the game that got me back into playing video games. Yeah, because at the time, I was 17, I think. So I was 17. Both my parents had passed away by this time, and I'm living on my own. And no, I had just turned 18. So I'm living on my own. Both my parents had passed away, and so I'm living in my house, and I've got friends over all the time. I mean, what does an 18-year-old do that owns his own house and has essentially no one to answer
party,
to?
Dude, duh.
So my buddy had a PlayStation. And he had Game Day '98. So I'm sitting there, and it's getting heated. We're having all these tournaments, and And I love football before I got in the accident, and I still loved it. And I was like, oh man. And playing these games after I was blind, it kind of like it was my way of still playing. Like I felt, even though it's just a video game, I felt like I was Terrell Davis running the ball. I was John Elway throwing the ball to my Shannon Sharp or Ed McCaffrey.
McCaffrey with the touchdown.
Exactly.
That sound.
Exactly.
The announcer is so bland and generic.
Yeah.
Ed McCaffrey with the touchdown. Echo.
And so I would feel like I was, I was still playing football as my way, my outlet, and so I'm watching my friends play. And I'm like, I can do this. I can still play. And so one day, like no one was around, which was a rare occasion, but I sat down with my friend. I was like, okay, I need you to tell me the plays as I flip through them. And so I would hold the controller and he'd be like, okay, square is pro set, A is trips, circle is this and triangle is this. I'm like, okay. Now he's like, if you move if you push the pad left, the only play that changes is the square was to the left, triangle, circle was to the right. What was like the middle button on the PlayStation? I don't remember now. Like what shape it was, but
squares left, triangles top, circles on the right, and X is in the bottom.
X, okay, yeah. So he was like, if you just move to the left once, only X changes and everything stays the same. So that made it easier for me to memorize all the first four formations, and then every time I'd go left, it was just a new formation on X.
Yep.
So first I memorized all the formations, offense and defense, and then within the formations I memorized, I don't want to say every play, but I'd say like 95% of the plays. So he'd be like, this is a run play, this is a pass play, run play. And so I knew everywhere where the run plays were and the pass plays were. And then by trial and error, I would figure out in the pass plays who was the best receiver to throw to on those pass plays. Yep. So I memorized all this. And then when my buddies came over again, we started playing and they're like, hey, yeah, let Johnny play. Let's see what he can do. And I beat my friend, and he was like, "What the heck?" And he's like, "That was beginner's luck." And I was like, "All right, yeah, who's up next?"
Let's go.
I mowed through everyone, and so out of all my friends, I could beat all of my friends except this one friend of mine, one of my best friends.
He was good.
He just had my number every time.
I wouldn't have let you beat me, dude. I would have kicked your butt. I would have been pissed.
I had this one friend that, so after Game Day 98, I just continued to play like NFL 2K and on the Dreamcast.
Of course.
And so I had this one friend, he'd come over all the time. No lie, out of 100 times, he only beat me once. And so finally, this one last time I beat him, he's like, that's it. I quit. I'm never playing you again. He's like, this was the last time. He's like, people laugh at me when I tell them that you beat me in football all the time. He's like, I'm done. He like officially quit playing against me.
I would have quit like after like 3 or 4 losses. I'd have been so pissed. Because you know how competitive I am. Oh man.
Yeah.
No way.
It was really fun. It was really funny. One of my friends brought his friend over. And he knew I was blind, but he didn't know like I would play Game Day. And so he saw everyone playing, and my friend was like, "Hey, why don't you play Johnny?" And he was like, "Yeah, sure." Haha, funny.
No, seriously.
He's like,
play Johnny.
No, for real. And he's like, "All right." So we ended up playing, and I just totally annihilated him. And he was just like, what the heck just happened? He was like, I just lost to a blind guy in this football game. It was so funny. But yeah, so I loved that. Just got me back into kind of playing games.
That's
and
awesome.
Back into kind of loving football because again, I took a hiatus for 5 or 6 years with that stuff, and so I just kind of got back. And so Game Day 98 kind of brought me back into the fold, so to speak.
Totally, and that's like right in my heyday of being, so we kind of had the opposite route. Like that's when I started getting really into actually playing football. Game Day 98, I was actually really good by then at playing football. And I was, I think 13, 14 by that time, and so I was humongous. I grew really, really fast. I haven't grown since I was 13, and I've been shaving since I was 12. So like I grew really quickly, and so they were like, well, that kid is going to be a football player. And I ended up being one. So that kind of, I would go to football practice and I'd come home and I'd try to mimic what I did at practice or the same or vice versa. I kind of do what I did on Game Day 98 in practice. Yeah. And it just kind of reaffirmed my love for football and what I would do. And that game was so awesome. I'd play that game so much, and what was cool about it is my dad would actually like watching me play that game, because he'd make me go out and practice and play, and be out, make me run, and I'd do all like the football-y stuff that you do, and all the drills and hitting stuff, and I was an inside linebacker and a running back, so like I was always having to like get stronger and faster. But then, when I would have my downtime and I'd be playing video games, my dad would love to watch that. He'd be, oh, that's cool. And I'd always be the Broncos too. I mean, everyone wants the Broncos, but so that kind of reaffirmed like my love for football. And then, you got into Madden as you're older, and Madden became a thing, and football became more and more a part of my life. When I first put on pads, I was, I think, 10, and like I think the world stopped. I hear you. It was the same feeling as when I got my Nintendo. So right then I had the video game passion, and then I played baseball growing up, and then I played basketball. My dad was a basketball coach. He coached college basketball and everything. So I played a lot of basketball, but then when I put those pads on for the first time, the world was just perfect, and I knew I was going to do this for a long time. So you get into that wheelhouse, and you get into hanging with the jocks, right? And as I go through high school, and actually junior high, I was actually kind of an outcast. I was 6'1", 6'2" in junior high.
So you were the dude in 8th grade with like the full beard.
Oh yeah, totally. No, nice. I hit 6'2" in 7th grade. I was 6 foot. I was 5'11", 6 foot in 6th grade, and then 6'2". I'm 6'2" now, and I was 6'2" in 7th grade. And
that's funny.
And all my middle school friends were just like, we would build computers together. We were absolute nerds, and so we would in 6th grade we would write HTML code and do basic and make text adventure games, and reprogram and wire motherboards and do all that stuff, and play video games constantly. But then I would have my sports friends who were like, oh, why are you hanging out with those guys? And let's go, let's go do this. Let's go ride bikes. Let's go practice football. And and so like I'd have that, but they weren't really friends. They were more my teammates. So in school, I was kind of like, in junior high especially, I was a big kind of outcast. I was a dork. I was in like the smart brainy classes because I was decently smart, and I hung out with the nerds. But then I was really good on the football field and on the basketball court. So then I couldn't really be made fun of, and I was huge. So it was this weird kind of interplay of who I am. So that's kind of been like the story of my life is who am I? And it sounds cliche, or sounds kind of like, oh, woe is me, but it's not in the sense of like, oh, I'm upset about it, but it was a struggle trying to figure it out. And again, especially when you get into high school, and you go up, and luckily my best friend was, the popular guy, and he was like the most popular guy in school. He was like Stifler off of American Pie. Like
nice.
He was like that guy, but I was popular because of him and because I was a good football player. But my love and what I used to like to do, I was smart, and I liked video games and computers and that kind of stuff. And so I had to always kind of hide that side and just be, big tough football player guy, but at the same time, kind of the nerd, the inner nerd, So, even when I was hanging out with all my friends who are jocks and athletes like myself, I'm proud to say I am a jock, but I'm also a smart nerd guy too. And I would talk about nerd stuff, and they'd be like, "Oh, Teddy, you're a gamer. Oh my god, that's so funny. Oh, you're a gamer." Because we'd play NCAA football, or we'd play like Halo, like the cool dude games, right? But if you played anything else, like you were just a dork,
right?
And then we start playing video games, and I'd like bust out these other ones, like, what is that? Like what? And so that was kind of weird. And I guess I'll go back to the story. I think I mentioned it to you before. I'll probably put it up on the website. It's a funny story. But when I went on to play college football, I played linebacker in college, and we were at a game. I think it was my sophomore year. Sophomore year, and we're in warm-up, so we're playing Wyoming. So I played at San Diego State, so we're playing Wyoming, and Wyoming, if you didn't know, is the highest place to play in all of college football. It's 7,200 feet, so it's super. Ooh. The air is really thin, so it's rough. So in warm-ups, you're huffing, and you're, oh my god, you want to die. It sucks. But so we're going through warm-ups, and I just keep hearing this slow drone, and like, hey, 50, like, hey, 50 was my number at the time. And hey, meat bed. And they're screaming. And I was like, what is this? I would look over, and these two dudes would just jump up and down and like looking at me. So I was like, oh, so I kind of, whenever you're at a different place to play, fans heckle you, right? It happens.
Totally. Yeah.
So you're used to that. So I ignore it, like especially when you make a good play, people are like, oh, like you suck. But yeah, but this is in warm-ups, and these guys are just like screaming at top of lungs. And then they're saying, there's like Teddy, Edwards on the back of my jersey, Edwards. And then, like I didn't really realize what they were saying the first time. But then finally they walked around the back of the end zone when we were like the final part of the warm-ups, and they yelled meat bed really loud. And if you guys didn't know, like meat bed is my screen name for all video games. And so as soon as I heard that, I was like, wait, what? And I turned around, and I was into online games pretty much at the time. I was into Age of Empires. I was on the #1 clan in the world at the time, and we were pretty good. And I was on a tournament team with that, and we'd won a bunch of tournaments. And they were two of my teammates on my game, and we have our clan website where we put up like a bio about us, and they went to the University of Wyoming, and we were playing there. And so they were like, hey, look, it's Thor, and so they were like, they're two of my buddies I played with all the time that I'd known from video games.
That's funny.
Yeah, it was cool, but at the same time, like my teammates looked at me like I was a freaking alien. They're like, wait, what are they saying? Like what? And like, yeah, well, we'll see you tonight in the game. And I was like, oh no. And so everybody, I'm talking like even my linebacker coach was like, whoa, Teddy, you're a game nerd. And yeah, and so it was at the time, I'm 19 years old, 20, I'm a college football player, D1 football player, and it's just like everyone looking at me like I'm crazy and like I'm just this freak. And so like it was a unique experience, definitely, to say the least. I have to kind of balance that act out, and because everyone made fun of me for a long time with that. I mean, there's some guys on the team who played games too, and we're kind of like, oh, you play games, and kind of quietly whisper, but it was to the point where it's like, oh man, like this is like these don't go together.
Two opposite ends of the spectrum.
Really, it really is. And then after college, I went to grad school and I became a coach. So I stayed in the athletic world. And so I'm a strength coach, and I worked with, in the NFL and all these things. So still being in that football tough jock world is always what I've known. But at that time, when that happened and, shortly afterwards, I came to the realization that, what, this is who I am. Like, I like video games. I am a nerd. I majored in biochemistry and genetics in college. That's my bachelor's degree. So I'm a nerd. I like science. I like games. But you know what? I'm also a jock. I like sports. I like football. I can be both. And so when I came to that grip and came to those terms, it was just so much easier. It was like, oh, whatever, And I think that's a struggle with a lot of gamers nowadays, because gaming is like taboo. And now over the last 5 years, I almost envy all the new gamers coming up. Gaming is so in the forefront in the medium. It's right. You see it all around. But back then it wasn't. Like you were, video games rotted your mind and they were bad, or you were like the straight up guy with all the pimples sitting in your basement and you didn't have any social interactions, right? But you can still like video games and be a normal human being.
Oh yeah, like, totally.
It is that. So there was that interplay too, and it was very, very interesting. And then the other finding part is, I'm half black and half white, so figuring that part out with that is interesting as well too, because I was a smart nerdy kid, and for all intents and purposes, if you're half black, my dad is black and my mom's white. I was too white for the black kids, so the black kids didn't really want to hang out, and then I was too dark for the white kids, and the white kids were like, oh, you're different. So when you're a kid, I'm like, Mom, what am I? I'm a nerd and I play football and I don't look like everybody else. What the heck? So, there was that whole finding yourself thing too. And, I like to see both sides of everything, because for me, I'm multifaceted in the sense that I have a foot in both camps and everything. So I think the perspective I want to bring to this is seeing everything from both sides, seeing it from the side of someone who's been on the video game fence where it's looked at in a negative light, and being deep in it where you love it. So that's kind of what I'm kind of passionate about, and what I want to bring to this podcast, and this perspective I want to give with everyone listening to us,
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. That you kind of had opposite ends of the spectrum on multiple levels then.
Totally. Yeah, that's what it is. It's I like to be objective and see both sides of everything. And and because I think you get a good view of everything. If you're one dimensional in any part of your life, you're gonna miss so much. And so I think what's gonna make it awesome. This is kind of me pumping us up already, but what's going to make this show awesome is that we're going to bring all the different aspects, and we're going to bring people in who are unique to the industry. We're going to focus on indie game developers, get them in there, get the scene going, talk about the development. We're going to bring people in who are in the video game world but are maybe personalities. We're going to bring in athletes who've played sport. I mean, it's just going to be, but everyone has the common bond of playing video games and having that love for the gaming. And because now it's we're cool with it. Gaming is cool. Gaming is cool now. And if it's not cool, we're gonna make it cool. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So so again, that's basically about us. So how's the show gonna go? Like, what are we gonna do on the show, man? What's some cool stuff?
Well, we'll I guess we'll talk about like some news quickly, and just kind of give our opinions, I guess, on a couple of stories that just throw in for about 10-15 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, we'll talk about the news for sure, like the main stories that everyone touches on. But I think we want to find some hidden news stories that are really kind of under the radar, right?
Yeah, and also I do some of the stuff that I do for work is like marketing for crowdfunding and doing internet marketing and stuff. So we'll try and find some pretty cool games that might be on like Kickstarter, Indiegogo, or something, and get them on and promote them. Because I myself, and I think you're the same way, Ted. Throughout my whole life, I've always rooted for the underdog. I don't know why. I always appeal to that underdog, and I think there's a lot of what's cool about indie games and where technology is. So many cool games can be made, but they just need to be found. Exactly. And so that's what's awesome about crowdfunding. It gives the average person the opportunity to take that chance and possibly make one of the coolest games we've seen, where these big studios, they're going to do all these, tests and group and test them with groups of people and be like, focus groups, and they're going to be like, we don't think we can make $10 million off this, so it's not even worth it.
So let's just reboot. Let's do number 5 of this game, instead of doing new IP. Exactly.
Exactly. So it's so much really cool potential stuff doesn't get made. By these bigger guys because they don't want to quote unquote take the chance.
Exactly.
So these indie developers, they're the ones that we need to help out and, encourage them and help out however we can, whether it's buying their game or, helping them out on Kickstarter, Indiegogo, whatever it is. And then that's how we're going to start to see kind of cool, innovative games.
Yep. I'm on point. And like you said, with, what I'm doing for working with my company, that's kind of the wheelhouse we're in, is supporting the games. So there's going to be a good crossover there. And hopefully we're going to give opportunities to some of the game devs who come on the show that we can support through my company and through the work that we're going to do together. So I think that'll be cool. So the game devs will be on there. The crowdfunding aspect is good. We're going to also highlight quality crowdfunding projects or unique ones, because a lot of the crowdfunding has gotten shoved in our face so much that it's been taken advantage of at some points. And we're going to really find the ones that need it and are doing their best and that, are really trying to make something. And so I think we're going to highlight those. Also, we're going to have, like I said, those interviews are going to be good. We're going to talk about within those, what the project is, kind of how they went on the development cycle, what they're doing, some unique stuff about the game. We're actually probably going to get a playthrough of the game. Money Mike, our little intern kick around, little buddy around the office, he's gonna help me out with that. We're gonna do some gameplays. We'll have some takes on that, and then we'll have a special segment with all of all of our guests, and we'll get into that later. But we definitely want feedback from everyone who's listening. So we're gonna have you guys email us. We have a Facebook group up. Is that right, John? I think.
Yeah. Yep. And Jon and Ted's excellent podcast, Gamecast.
Yeah. So find us on Facebook and join the group, because again, we're going to be posting a lot of stuff in there, just updates. You can connect with us there. You can send us an email to jtexgamecast@raptorcow.com. That's kind of the email address. So shoot us emails there. Because we want to hear from you guys.
Say it one more time.
It's JT Jon and Ted's excellent Gamecast at RaptorCow Raptor,
Okay.
Raptor like the dinosaur, cow like the steak. You know, so yeah, but yeah, we want to hear from you guys. We want send us in emails, tell us what you think. Again, we're going to be sourcing questions because we want questions from you guys. We're going to have fun segments where we do trivia, and so anything that you guys want to talk to us about, we want to talk. We're going to have a topic of the week segment too, where we're going to bring up random topics in video game stuff. That's what's grinding our gears, or something cool. Maybe a new usage of VR might come up and we want to talk about it, or anything. So we're going to bring up topics of the week, and if you have suggestions on topics, I think you should just kind of hit us up.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and so we'll be on that. I think that is it.
And we're also going to have our Beat the Boss game for the people that we interview.
Yes, that's the fun segment. We're gonna have a little video game boss segment where it's every guest has to come on, and at the end of their interview they have to beat the boss. It's a boss battle. So we'll have a little game that we'll explain when we get there. It's, it'll be some fun times. And again, the questions will come from us and from you. So if you have some good questions to ask, it'll be trivia based on video games. So that gives you a good start. Episode 1, you'll kind of get the gist of it. But send us in questions that we can use for that. That'd be great. Help us out and kind of put them on the spot, make it fun. So without further ado, you got anything else, John, before we get out of here?
I think I'm tapped out.
Right. Yeah, I think we're good. Again, we're going to be up on what kind of how do people get our show? When are we coming out? I think Thursdays, right? Every Thursday?
Yeah, I believe that's the days that we're looking at.
Yeah, we're going to be coming out every Thursday. That's the goal. We'll shop it around for a little bit, but I think every Thursday is going to be our day. Check us out there. We'll be on iTunes. What else are we going to be on?
Any other media podcatcher that you can get on,
Cool.
Stitcher Radio, Pocket Cast, any of the other ones on Android.
Yep, everywhere.
You'll find us.
Everywhere. We're going to be everywhere. So, yeah, and if you want to go find us and any more information about the show, you can go to RaptorCow.com. Raptor, like the dinosaur, and cow like the steak, like I mentioned before, and /podcast/JTEG. That's Jon Ted's Excellent Gamecast. So, I think episode 0 in the books. Good. High five.
Oh, yeah. Booyah.
Booyah. Nice job. All right. So, again, this is Jon and Ted's Excellent Gamecast. We appreciate you guys listening, and thanks a lot. And we'll see you next week with episode number 1 and a special guest, and we're getting into the show.
Game over.